Although the playoffs are still a few weeks away, for the NFL, the playoffs have in a way just started. We're getting down to the crunch time here for the league. Just a few weeks left in the season and teams fighting for those precious few playoff spots. The Chargers are one of those teams, and while they have put themselves in a comfortable position, these next few games are the greatest test this team will face this season. What's up, everyone? I'm Sam Peña, a Bolt fan in the Berg for Chargers Digest. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the Chargers going into this week against the Philadelphia Eagles tomorrow night on Monday Night Football. The Eagles are obviously the defending Super Bowl champions, so this is a game that all of us had circled on the calendar going into the year. But both of these teams are not what we expected them to be. Sure, the records are fine for both teams, both winning records. Both of them look like they are playoff teams, but they're very different than what we were expecting to see in terms of team makeup. For the Eagles, we thought this would be a dominant offense that would be destroying teams weekly. For the Chargers, we thought this would be a team that would have a strong offensive line that would need to make up for some of the deficiencies on the defensive side of the football. Neither of those came true. For the Chargers, it didn't come true because of injuries, and for the Eagles, it didn't come true because of, once again, a supernatural funk that has seemed to have fallen over the team. So we're going to be talking about what exactly the Chargers are going to expect from the Eagles tomorrow night and what the Eagles can expect from the Chargers since they've made some adjustments following the bye week and a big win over the Raiders. So without further ado, let's talk about it. The first thing you have to talk about in this game is the same thing we talk about all the time when it comes to the Chargers. You guessed it, the offensive line. Some big changes that have come since the bye week for the Chargers, specifically the move of Jamaree Salyer from guard over to left tackle. This is something that isn't a crazy decision by the Chargers whatsoever. Salyer actually was a left tackle in college for the Georgia Bulldogs, and his first season with the Bolts, he played for them at left tackle, and he played at a pretty high level. He never seemed like he was going to be a top 10 tackle in the league, but he seemed like someone who was going to be serviceable. Because of some athletic deficiencies, the Chargers decided to move him inside the guard, and since then he has struggled. We all know about that playoff game last year against the Houston Texans. He was one of the big reasons why the Chargers lost that game. He was just kind of a bit of a turnstile, couldn't block anybody on that Houston Texans defensive line. This year, though, the Chargers have been better when he's been at left tackle compared to any other options that the Chargers have tried so far. We know obviously about the trade for Trevor Penning, how that went. As for Salyer, this was the last time he was playing for the Chargers at left tackle. He had a 69.2 overall grade with a 75.9 pass blocking grade. Neither of those numbers scream elite, but they do scream serviceable and solid. And given what the Chargers have seen so far this year out of Deculus and Trevor Penning, we will take serviceable at this point. Trey Pipkins has so far been the Chargers' best offensive lineman, and Trey Pipkins in years past has been the worst offensive lineman for the Chargers. So if the Chargers can get decent play out of Jamaree Salyer, they're going to be happy with that. And they got that last week against the Raiders. When you take a look at how Jamaree Salyer performed in that game, he actually had the highest pass block win rate of the entire league. But more than that, he represented yet another combination for the Chargers on that offensive line. When you look at Daniel Popper, he reported that so far the Chargers have used 19 different offensive line combinations. And with those 5 games to go, it looks like this is going to be the group they settled on, with Salyer over at left tackle, Zion Johnson left next to him at left guard, Bradley Bozeman, like it, love it, or hate it like I do, at center, and then you have Mekhi Becton at right guard and Trey Pipkins at right tackle. Outside of when Olsen Slater have been in the lineup, this seems to have been the best combination for the Chargers over the past couple years. We'll see if it can continue to perform at a serviceable level, and it's going to have to do that. Salyer is someone who is okay when it comes to run blocking. If you get him moving downhill, he actually can be very successful. Where he has struggled is when the Chargers have tried to pull him. Interesting thing to note, though, last week against the Raiders, it felt like the Chargers were fully committed to giving Salyer as much assistance as they could along the offensive line. They continued to put chips in with the running backs. They also had their tight ends consistently pulling to be able to give him some assistance as well. I expect that to be the case when it comes to the Eagles' pass rush this week. The Eagles have a very good defensive line, so the Chargers should be expecting some heavy pressures, some blitzes up the middle, and also some heavy heavy stunts as well. The question is, can Salyer and Johnson pass those off smoothly? If they can, I think the Chargers have a bit of a shot to be able to put up some points this week. But of course, all of this is coming down to the health of Justin Herbert. We all know that without Herbert in the lineup, it's going to be a difficult day for the Chargers, and with the Herbert injury, that's going to be a big concern. Now, Jim Harbaugh has said that he expects Herbert to play, and when Herbert was asked about it, he said, "The plan is to prepare as if I'm going to play and see how the next couple of days goes. Do everything I can to be out there for the team and the guys out there." Herbert, of course, just had his surgery on his non-throwing hand. It's a good thing that the broken hand was his non-throwing hand because that gives him a chance to play. But what that means is the Chargers are not going to be able to run many plays under center if Herbert does play, which means that a lot of the playbook that Greg Roman has established this season is going to change. When Greg Roman was asked about it, he said, "Listen, I was born at night, but not last night. Vic's going to have different ways to leverage coverage to where it's not one-on-one all the times, but as far as the matchup goes, I like McConkey against anybody," which implies that Roman is going into this week thinking that if they're going to take advantage of the Eagles' defense, it's going to be with McConkey in man-to-man coverage, which is interesting because the Eagles actually have a pretty good defense when it comes to their defense. But I think this might be a little bit of smoke and mirrors from Roman because I really feel as if he is going to lean on the run game this week. Why is that the case? Well, a few reasons. First of all, when we're taking a look at the Chargers' health, Omarion Hampton is finally back in the lineup for the team. Hampton is someone who was very exciting for the Chargers when they drafted him in the first round this year. He had a little bit of a slow start, but was really starting to pick up and was kind of showcasing those highlight level performances that he could create for the Bolts in the league. And then, of course, he suffered a pretty bad ankle injury that has kept him out for several weeks now. But the news that we have coming through over the rumor mill is that Hampton is going to finally be activated off of IR, which could be a huge boost for this Chargers offense, especially if they can pair him with Herbert coming back from an injury as well. If Herbert and Hampton can both go out there and perform at a somewhat decent level, this offense should be able to exploit some holes on the Eagles' rush defense, especially because the Eagles right now are in the last 3 games, when taking a look at the run defense rankings, when you take a look at the next few games for the Chargers, the teams that they're facing in terms of run defense, they aren't very strong. The Eagles are 19th, the Chiefs are 22nd, and the Cowboys are 29th, which means that the Chargers are going to have some opportunities to establish the run against them. And when it comes to health, in addition to Omarion Hampton returning for the Chargers, the Eagles also got some bad news as well when it comes to the injury front too. They got the news that they are going to be without one of their big starters this week in Jalen Carter. He's someone who's been a very strong presence up front for the Eagles. If the Chargers are able to exploit that, I think Hampton could have a pretty big game. When you look at his numbers so far this season, they haven't been extraordinary, but one thing that stands out is his yards per attempt at 4.8. He's someone who's been very good at eking out whatever he can on the ground. The Chargers have really struggled all season with contact behind the line of scrimmage, in large parts because of the struggles that their offensive line has had, but Hampton has done an excellent job at being able to break those tackles and also to make guys miss in space, which is a big reason why the Chargers were able to score points at a relatively consistent level for the first few weeks of the season. Now, do I expect Hampton to go off for over 100 yards against the Eagles? Probably not, but if he can touch around 80 yards or so on the ground, and if he can throw in maybe 30 to 40 more through the air, I think that's going to be something that the Chargers are going to be very happy with and very pleased about moving on through the remaining part of their schedule, because this is a brutal schedule for the Chargers moving forward. Make no mistake about it, this is going to be very, very tough for the Chargers to be able to finish strong and make the playoffs. In addition to the defending Super Bowl champions and the Eagles, they're then going to have to go to Kansas City and play the Chiefs once again. The Chiefs haven't looked great this season, but they are still the Chiefs, and it is still Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And this week, the Chargers are going to have to face them with Rashee Rice, which they didn't have to do week 1 in Brazil. Then you look beyond that, the Cowboys seem to be resurgent this season. Now that they have traded for Quinnen Williams, they look like they have a pretty strong defense now, and we know that Dak Prescott is a good quarterback and can put up points against anybody. Beyond that, the Chargers then have to face the Houston Texans, who are not a pushover at all, and were the team that destroyed them in the playoffs last season. And then, of course, they finish off the year in Denver against the Denver Broncos, who currently lead the AFC West. The good news so far is the Chargers are 4-0 in the AFC West, which means that they're winning a lot of the tie-breaking matchups if it comes to those last few playoff spots. We also got some good news just a few moments ago when we saw finally that the Colts lost, and in addition to that, it actually was a good thing that the Broncos beat the Raiders, because that means that from a strength of schedule position, the Chargers will have a win over an opponent with a strong strength of schedule, which means that ideally for this team, looking into those deep tiebreakers, the Chargers are going to be in a pretty position if they are going to be in a tie-breaking situation with, say, the Chiefs or potentially the Bengals who look for surgeon, or the Steelers as well. The Steelers also beat the Ravens, which is another good thing for the Chargers because the Chargers have a tiebreaker over the Steelers. They don't have one over the Baltimore Ravens. Overall, the schedule so far today has gone pretty well for the Chargers, even though the schedule ahead looks like it's going to be a pretty desperate situation. I think this is a team that is going to have to target 10 wins. If they can get to that mark, I think they will be in the playoffs. If they can't, I think Jim Harbaugh is going to have to settle for a 9-8 season, which is not what he was hoping for after how good they played last year. I know the Chargers have beaten Bo Nix 3 times in a row, but it's not going to be easy to beat him a 4th time, especially now that you've lost another offensive lineman. If the Chargers are going to prove that they are a contender for the next few years, they have to show some resiliency, they have to show some strength, and it starts tomorrow night against the defending Super Bowl champions. Thank you all so much again for watching. I'm Sam Peña here with Chargers Digest. Would love it if you guys could like and subscribe as we try to build this channel here. Would really appreciate any support you guys can show to us, and let me know down below how you feel about the Chargers season so far and this matchup against the Eagles. Until then, next time though, I'll see you guys later, Bolt Nation. Remember, as always, bolt up.